Many classic films from all different kinds of time periods have been noteworthy for the graphic nature of their violent scenes. Violence in movies has long been a source of controversy since cinema was in its infancy or early beginnings. From black and white gunplay of the gangster movies of the 30s to Alfred Hitchcock's thrillers to the slow-motion gunfights in Arthur Penn's landmark 1967 film Bonnie and Clyde to the rivers of blood in Quentin Tarantino's movies to Steven Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan. The depiction of violence in film has long polarized critics and audiences. There are two main factors that have caused violence in films to jump over from abstract classic film noir to the bloody and explicit gore of any action or horror film of the present. These include changes in technology as well as changes in the meaning of the word and the cultural expectations from society. A couple of the films I'll be talking about, especially Psycho, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, have rebelled against the previous institutions of filmmaking by breaking barriers about can be shown and what is viewed by the audience of the film. Over the years, the portrayal of violence in film has changed greatly. Two iconic films stand out when talking about the portrayal of violence in film, and these are Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho as well as Zack Snyder's 300. Alfred Hitchcock filmed Psycho in 1960, and it was not like any film moviegoers had ever seen before, particularly due to its violence and the portrayal of violence. With its shocking burst of violence and provocative sexual explicitness, Psycho tested the strict censorship boundaries of the times, as well as the audience's capacity of tolerance for that kind of material. As a result of pushing the boundaries, Alfred Hitchcock was able to make one of the biggest hits of his long and successful career. The most violent scene in the film is the 45-second shower murder scene, which is one of the most famous scenes in cinema history. Many argue that this scene is one of the most violent scenes in any American film ever made. Many events led up to this scene. For the film's first 3/4 of an hour, the audience has followed Jeanette Leigh's Marion Crane, and this building engagement with the film's supposed central character. Then, in an electrifying, brutal scene, as Marion readies herself for bed with a shower and in the rundown Bates Motel, she is hacked to death by a barely glimpsed old woman. The moviegoers had never seen anything quite like it before. The total shock of killing off the lead character a third of the way in, and just a complete feeling of disorientation in the middle of the film. The scene was made very slowly, and it took around 70 shots for this 45-second scene. They used chocolate sauce for the blood during the murder, and Hitchcock claimed that the knife never even touched the victim, Jeanette Leigh, at all. Psycho was also filmed in black and white, and this was not usual for Hitchcock's this was not usual for Hitchcock at this stage in his filmmaking. But he wanted to have a better control of the graphicness of the murder scene by not having color, as it would make it less realistic. Also, censors at this time would definitely prohibit the use of red blood splatters in the room. When watching the film, you think it's a lot more graphically violent than it actually is because of that absence of color. This was a shift in levels of violence in movies, and censors also changed during this time. Other films in the same thriller, such as Bonnie and Clyde, Jaws, Halloween, Fatal Attraction, and of course the Scream series, all have been influenced by Hitchcock's Psycho in terms of how much violence and how it is portrayed, as well as other factors such as the portrayal of sexual innuendos, humor, and music. Psycho is a film that was a pioneer in the industry, and its portrayal of violence set the stage for future films. It was, however, very cautious in doing so. Zack Snyder's 300 is a more modern version of an action movie that incorporates large amounts of violence and gruesome and bloody scenes. In this film, the Spartans and their allies, the Greeks, joined together to battle the large Persian army that wants Sparta to submit to them. King Leonidas, on the side of the Spartans, leads a battalion of 300 soldiers to battle the larger Persian army. He chooses to use a tactic of drawing them into Thermopylae, a barren area near the sea, which would allow the Spartans to corner and attack the Persian army, led by King Xerxes. There is much violence throughout the film, as the battles are outright filled with bloodshed and death. Other factors make the film less disturbing, such as the parallel structure of having different stories being told at the same time, but the battles are very gruesome and barbaric, which matches the time period it is set in. Snyder used many ancient weapons and fighting techniques, such as large armies, to depict the fighting sides. He also uses many shields, weapons, such as spears and bows and arrows, to depict how bloody this battle was in real life. In this film, compared to Psycho, the portrayal of violence is much more evident and obvious. This is due to the time period as well as our society's acceptance of violence in these movies. These days, there are less censorship laws that prohibit certain material because the rating of the movie already differentiates between what type of audience is allowed to watch what.